to formally open the session. So Ross, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Rob. Welcome, everyone. Really good to see you this morning. We're in a time of ongoing transition, it appears, but this Chamber Solutions event is really here to help you to understand how other businesses are addressing the undoubted challenges that we're all facing. The good thing compared to, say, a month or two ago is at least we're starting to understand what the issues are, but we may not have found all of the solutions to all of these particular issues. And that's the purpose of a Chamber of Solutions event. So as Rob has indicated, we really would like this to be very much hearing from you, not just what your questions, what your concerns, what your queries are, but what solutions you've found. What is it? What are the secret techniques that you've discovered that have got you through some of these issues? And so you can share those with fellow practitioners, those who are having to face these same challenges across the county. There's no doubt that we've seen quite a few pieces of sort of PR, one might say spin, but I wouldn't be that harsh, around these particular issues over the last couple of months. And there's no doubt that, yes, businesses are going through teething problems and trying to understand what these changes mean for them. And like all businesses, you tend to look at the solutions when the problems are being faced. But yes, we have seen a big downturn in international trade coming across the borders. Says some of the reasons are stockpiling, no doubt COVID-19. Some might be that we are making changes to our business strategies. Our supply chain may be, our distribution channels might be. We'd like to hear that as well. So what's the business situation for you? Because it's not just about the technical aspects and the solutions. The important thing is to see where are the new opportunities. Now, we're putting together over these 3 months period a lot of programs, a lot of support for you. You will have seen that we're providing one-to-one support, we're providing Chamber of Solutions events such as this, but there's a lot of technical webinars and also marketplace webinars. So we're recognizing that, yes, this is a time of change, but it is a time of opportunity. And so share with each other how you're managing to build new markets within the EU and beyond, and also what those technical requirements are to make that work. Because the Chamber and our partnership will be here to support you in achieving those objectives in the coming months. This transition is a time of change, but it's also opening the doors to a time of opportunity as we look towards global Britain. So I think that's really enough for me. I'd like to just shout out and call out Solent LEP and thank them for the support that they're providing to this programme. We've really come together around this and engaging businesses widely and broadly. Again, in the north of the county, we're being provided with support also from Enterprise M3 LEP, and we'd like to thank them and also show our support for them and the efforts that they're doing in terms of supporting international trade. This programme, as I say, is really yours. Let's hear from you. Put your questions in the chat, put your issues in the chat, or let Rob know that you'd like to speak. And we want to hear as much from each other as we possibly can. As I usually am, I'll be very much in the background. I will be hearing from you. I might be sharing some links, sharing some details while we hear some solutions from the expert panel. But please, let's engage as much as we possibly can. It's your couple of hours. It's a good chance to really find those solutions. Rob.
Thank you, Ross. We'll now move into some very quick intros. Rob Lewis, I'm here with Bob Allen. We're both from Mission Performance Limited, based in Lyon, the Solent. We deliver specialist training and development services locally and globally, helping people to lead, to coach, to communicate, and to manage risk more effectively. Working face-to-face and now increasingly online and virtual. We've been working with Ross and his team for the past 12 months, supporting these events. And a pleasure to be here as always. So let's turn to our panel. Charlotte, would you like to start?
Hi, I'm Charlotte Bloomfield. I'm a legal director with Womble Bond Dickinson, the solicitors in Southampton, based in Southampton, obviously working from home at the moment, working with a lot of clients around a lot of issues at the moment. COVID and Brexit together are creating an interesting people mix. So interested to see that there was a comment about redundancy there. I'm here to answer any questions that you've got around people issues. I can't really comment on immigration, but I know that is something that we've discussed in previous sessions and which is high up there on the list of concerns and something we are seeing quite a lot of.
Thank you, Charlotte. Tom?
Hi, my name is Tom Seymour. I'm from Growth Lending. We provide working capital solutions to businesses across the UK and increasingly across the world as well. One of the things we've seen a lot more of is when we looked at funding businesses where they might have a business here and also part of a group structure have another business overseas, that was quite rare. But obviously since the sort of Brexit period, a number of clients are now looking at setting up subsidiaries abroad. And that's also proved to be quite interesting. Some of it's been challenging for us, some of it hasn't been. So there's some quite good insights there. So if you are thinking of setting up, it is definitely worth thinking what country you are going to pick within Europe. So yeah, my first one here. So looking forward to getting involved and answering any questions anyone has.
Thank you very much, Tom. And Linda?
Hello, everybody. Good morning to those that haven't attended before. I'm delighted to be here. I have a company called International Trade Matters. We're based in the Southwest, but very, very happy to be a member of your chamber and working with you to provide some of those insights today. My company, we've been dealing with a lot of people who initially, at the start of in January, we're talking about what on earth is a commodity code, what is an EORI, where do I get it? You know, Incoterms, that was a big learning point. But we've noticed in the past couple of months that actually the talk is much more about customer special procedures. It's about getting your goods to Europe or vice versa because of the challenges with freight forwarders. And certainly VAT is still causing a problem, especially with DDP consignments and everything. But the special procedures are coming into their own now. So temporary imports, those sorts of things, or, you know, how does that work? Where do I get the codes and etc. So I'm delighted to be here today, and I'm looking forward to hearing of your experiences and perhaps, you know, we will all share our learning. So thank you.
Thanks, Linda. I think we're going to start with, I think you did that. You beat me to it, Linda.
Sorry.
Asking for some of the themes that you've been dealing with over the last 2 to 3 months. And the same question to you, Charlotte, and I'll go to you, Tom. Charlotte, what's been keeping you busy the last 2 or 3 months?
Well, actually, interestingly, acquisitions in the UK by other EU countries. So quite a bit of support around that. But colleagues have also been dealing with quite a few redundancies, some of those related to retractions back into the EU. So UK subsidiaries being shut down or scaled back quite considerably. But Brexit related, certainly we've seen an increase of people asking how they get employees into Europe to do the work that they need to do. So there have been quite a few referrals to those specific countries, and we're able to do that. We have a very good network across Europe and worldwide.
So it's transferring of resources to EU. Yeah, okay. Tom, what about yourself?
So we are an accredited CBILS lender. So we've been quite busy with sort of CBILS applications. And the main driver really, certainly from our side, has been a number of businesses now taking advantage of the scheme to invest in their business, to actually expand. We've also seen a number of businesses look at reorganizing their kind of group structure. And that's been the reason for the need for finance, generally because they've looked at setting up an overseas subsidiary. And that's then meant that they might need to stock an additional warehouse, something they didn't have before. So I would say we've been quite busy with businesses that are looking quite positively at new opportunities and actually looking to grow and expand. So the private equity market's been really active. So that's meant businesses have got this influx of cash, and now they also need to support that working capital cycle as well to marry it up.
Okay, thank you, Tom. And Linda, you hinted at it in your introduction. What's been the main focus for your efforts?
Yeah, I think it's very, very wide, from asking about the relocations and do they need to do that. And I pick up something Tom mentioned, which was about, which countries should they go to, and so asking advice on that. So it ranges from accessing new markets, which is great because that's a really positive strategy, to actually sort of getting stuck into the granular level, if you like, about those special procedures. How can I send my goods, to my company, and what values? And there's something coming out too about the costed bills of materials. And I know I've mentioned that before, but about what is included in that, so that they can people can prove origin of their goods. And there's still a lack of understanding about commodity codes and how you can look at the EU set of tariffs to understand what might be charged. So there is still, I think there's more of an appreciation about what they have to learn, whereas earlier it was, what do I have to learn?
Okay. I'm just going to turn to some of the questions that we've got in the chat already. There's a comment from Helen about redundancy in the current employment situation. This is probably one for you, Charlotte. It's quite a general one, but I'm making an assumption, Helen, that you've either been made redundant or facing redundancy. And what options, advice would you give to people like Helen, Charlotte? What sort of redundancy type support are you providing?
It is a very wide-ranging question. Helen, is there anything you specifically you wanted to ask?
Made up one. Helen, if you feel comfortable, you can open your video up or just put something in the chat.
I guess what I would say is, if you're an individual, there is lots of help out there. Go and have a look at the ACAS website, and I can put links in the chat, and the government website as well in relation to redundancy is very good both for employers and employees. I would obviously say go and seek advice from a solicitor, but I fully appreciate if you're in that situation, you may not feel able to because of the expense of that, but the Citizens Advice Bureau is also available for individuals, and there is lots of information about what employers should be doing. If you're an employer, then planning is always really important, and clear communication, and explaining to employees why you need to make the redundancies, and making sure that is understood, and appreciating that it is a really difficult situation for employees to be in. Try placing yourself in that position and see, that can really help you to find your way through a very difficult situation for everyone. I don't know too many employers in my long career who have ever been happy, who've ever spoken to me and said that they were happy about the fact that they were having to make redundancies. So it's just making sure that communication is really, really good and grounded in truth.
Yes. So from an employer's perspective, Helen, Charlotte, we're recruiting at the moment. We've been inundated with applications. So depending on what specialism you have, there's definitely a market for talented people out there. So don't lose hope, because there's always going to be a need for talented individuals. And and
there are definitely growth areas. So, and employers often will help people with trying to find jobs. Employers will link up with local job centre plus and other organisations to try and provide you with additional support. I know members of the Chamber have also got schemes running that help you with CV writing and the like.
Yeah, I think that Ross is putting some links in the chat for that. Thank you for that, Charlotte. Let's again, I'm going to work through some of these questions, and at any time, if you want to address the panel with your question, then please feel free to do so. Hugh, you talked about sending goods via groupage to the EU. Hugh, if you're still there, you have the floor, sir, to put your question probably to Linda, I would imagine. Hugh? So Hugh's, Linda, let's answer that. What's your view on sending goods via groupage to the EU? What's your experience?
I think I touched on it a little bit earlier, that actually there is still an awful lot of noise around getting goods to Europe, certainly by the ferries or even through the tunnels, and that the freight forwarders across the board are in a state of confusion. They are under a deluge of incorrect documents, and that there are challenges just in coping with the demand of, and the results of the TCA, the Trade and Cooperation Agreement. I'm still getting every single day challenges with freight forwarders, and they're under enormous stress. So I'm not being critical of that. I think that things will get better. I think that there's something that you should be aware of, in that there are ancillary charges being raised, which is over and above any duty or transport costs or VAT, depending on the Incoterm you use, of course, who pays for all of those. But ancillary duties are something that are making some noise at this moment in time. And your freight forwarder should be able to give you information on that. But of course, bear in mind what I've just said, that they are under a deluge just right now.
Linda, tell us a little bit more about those ancillary duties.
Well, for some of the freight forwarders, they gave a whole load of lists of prohibited items, which confused a lot of people for some time, because they weren't prohibited by either Europe or the UK. And then they've started to allow them again. So it was purely about their flow, their demand levels, that they had to sort of like put a stop on these things. But now they're starting to issue, and this isn't across the board, just the ones that, that I've noticed, are issuing these for different types of goods. So they're adding a surcharge onto things. So, and it could be for a whole range of different things, whether it's the items or whether it's the price or the volume and whatever. So watch out for them. And I think my tip would be to ask your freight forwarder exactly what the costs are made up of, so that you have visibility.
Thank you, Linda. If anyone's got any experience of this, then please just raise a hand and we'll invite you in to join this discussion. I'm working through the questions. There was a question about temporary imports. Victoria, if you want to ask your question, then please feel free to address the panel. What specifically was it about temporary imports that was causing a challenge for you? You're still here. Temporary imports, maybe perhaps another one for you, Linda.
I'm lucky. Yes, temporary imports. Now it depends whether you're bringing it in to do some extra processing, and you want to claim a special procedure of IPR or OPR, depending on which way in or out it goes. But that it goes back to what I was saying about special procedures. And when you have a special procedure with customs, you have to find the special procedures code. So I would be in contact with your HMRC office or the website and finding out, or take expert advice as to which code you use that will allow your goods to pass through unhindered through customs. But that's where it lies, within this special group of IPR, OPR, these temporary imports and all of that, special procedures.
There was a go-to link for more information on that, Linda. Will you be putting that in the chat?
Yes, I will do. Yes.
Great. And we're working quite hard this morning, Linda. We got another question on MOD bases as well that came in from Jake. Jake, if you're here, please feel free to switch your video on and speak to us.
Hi, sorry, it's not Jake, it's Sharon, but it's under my son's name. So the question I have is, we do a lot of exporting to MOD bases, and we're having a few issues with getting those exports out, because obviously at MOD are not registered in other countries to import. And my understanding was that there was some special procedures, something in place with all countries around exporting and importing for defence reasons.
So I'm sorry, I can see Jake, and you told me your name, and I forget.
Sharon.
Sharon, hi Sharon, how are you? All right. So are you sending these to European MOD bases?
Some of them, yeah, Belgium, Germany.
Yeah, I would suspect it's got caught up in all of this backlog of stuff that's going on. I'm not aware of a special procedures code for MOD, but again, I'm going to put up the link to that shortly. If you and I perhaps could talk offline following this, that would be good. So I'll put my contact details in here. I can't give you any more than just, I feel it's to do with this backlog, this huge bottleneck that has been created, and it will sort itself out. That doesn't give you any comfort, and I'm sorry about that, but I've not got my wand today.
No, absolutely.
But perhaps we can talk offline and see if we can solve that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Linda. Ross, I'm going to ask you. There's a question about the Solent Freeport. What have you heard in your network about this?
Well, basically, if you want to take forward an interest in the Freeports, because obviously there are different opportunities in terms of being a tax-free zone. And a duty-free area. And if you want to take forward your interest in participating in it, then I would suggest you get in touch directly with me. I'll put my email address on the chat, but also Solent LEP, because Solent LEP have been sort of the convener of bringing together the plans and the processes for the Freeport. So there are brilliant opportunities for businesses in order to, particularly businesses that are bringing goods in and then re-exporting them and just adding value to those within the Freeport zone. So that will be an interesting thing. If that's part of your business makeup and your business frame, then that will be of interest. But also they are in effect operating also as an enterprise zone. So there are tax advantages of operating on the Freeport area. They're going to be spread across the Solent region. So there are parts of it that are around the Southampton area, around the New Forest. There are parts around Portsmouth and just inland from Portsmouth. So there are different opportunities, but it must be said, early stages. The bid, as we know, has been won. And so we are going to be taking that forward through the government and the planning process. But there's no time like now to get involved, because you can express your interest and start to shape your business ventures around the needs of your business, but also how they can align with the Freeport. It's going to take a little time to get going, for sure, but we've cleverly in the Solent Freeport pulled together parts which were already in place. None of this is entirely greenfield, because yes, it needs developing, but the fact is that the land is ready and available, and the owners are willing and see this as an important part of their development. So we know it's going to happen, and that's the key part of this. So very simply, get in touch with me. If you prefer, get in touch with Solent LEP directly, but and I'll make sure that you're hooked in and the opportunity takes forward, and we keep you aware of the progress that we're making.
Thank you, Ross. Jane, from Solent LEP, I know thank you for responding on the chat. You're very welcome to have a chat with us. Welcome, Jane. What's your anything to add?
Morning all. Nothing really to add to what Ross has said. Yeah, absolutely right. Early days, but very exciting. And we're convening, as Ross said, a coalition who have been involved in the bid. Lots and lots of hard work all round has gone into this, and it was brilliant news to hear in the budget announcement, and is going to mean lots of good news for businesses and lots of opportunity. But we are, at the moment, there's going to be a sort of standalone website. I believe that's coming to fruition very, very soon, perhaps in the next week or so. So we'll be able to give details and point people to a direct source of information there. And exactly what Ross said, you know, we do want to hear from people who want to express an interest in getting more information as it comes. So again, yeah, contact Ross directly, or you can contact myself. I'll pop my email in the chat as well. And I can make sure your expression of interest is logged on our system. We're all connected and working together. So yeah, absolutely fine. Happy to take any questions. We may not have all the answers at the moment, but we're very happy to connect with people on this. Thank you,
Jane. Tom, I'm sure with your background, the sort of Freeport opportunities of investment, well, have you got a view on that?
Yeah, I would say from our perspective at the moment, it's probably slightly early in terms of we haven't been approached by any sort of prospective clients yet in terms of how that will work. That being said, it was something that we did discuss and how it would help and how we could look at providing further support there and what growth opportunities would lie. But I would say at the moment, probably need to see a little bit more detail around it. Like I said, but what we have seen is definitely in terms of export, we haven't seen anyone stop an export. Not really any real change there from our perspective. If anything, export seems a lot higher up the agenda now, and that's sort of been building over the last couple of years. So I think actually the timing of it is quite good because there's a number of businesses that will be keen to further enhance their sort of growing export business by possibly looking at relocating.
Yeah, and on that point about relocation, give us a summary of your experience. You know, you talked about certain countries being favoured for certain.
Yeah, so we are currently still engaged with a business which are looking to sort of relocate to France. And the commercial finance market in France is regulated. It's quite hard to take security in the same way that it is over here from a lending perspective. Yeah. There's quite a lot more loopholes, and the more kind of hoops you've got to jump through, the more expensive it gets. So that sort of balance. Whereas we've got another client which is setting up a subsidiary in Ireland, where their legal structures are much more akin to the UK. So from our perspective, to get legal due diligence done and things is pretty straightforward, to be honest. But what will be quite good is that we won't be the only lender going through this process. So I think what will become a lot more common is that if someone has a business in the UK and they want to set up a business in Ireland to trade into the EU, for instance, they will no doubt come across more and more lenders like ourselves, which will have these documents ready and be prepared to do that. So I'd definitely say it's worth speaking to someone such as like Linda in the first instance, because there's also the practical steps about where you pick, but also engaging with lenders as well from a legal perspective. So, you know, if you go and set up in Germany, for instance, that can provide different challenges, but it can be slightly more straightforward, certainly more straightforward than say France. So you might be picking somewhere on a map, and there's a bit more to go into it. And I think secondly as well, as with all things, it might be worth engaging a UK lender if you're keeping your UK business, but it might well worth engaging a lender based in the country you're going to be setting up, because they obviously already operate within that country. So therefore we'll have a lot greater insight potentially into what goes on. So I think for a lot of people, planning is definitely key. We have seen a few businesses where they're sort of setting up quite large subsidiaries abroad, and I don't think all this has been taken into account. So I think early engagement by all sides is absolutely key.
And coming up a couple of levels, what are the main reasons for companies relocating?
So for some, it is documentation, and that can be both perception and reality. So we have experienced some businesses which have felt that exporting, trying to export into the EU has just become really challenging, and it'd be far easier if their stock was already within the EU and they would just sell into the EU. Secondly, some have been logistics as well. So some have feel that they've also got more of an issue getting goods into the UK and then back out into the EU. So on both fronts, I'd say less so. Mm-hmm. And I suppose the third, sometimes it can just be pure convenience. Sometimes the goods already come via, via the EU. So it just takes another leg out of the journey.
Yeah.
Where before having the stock in the UK, it could be shared, where now having the stock segregated would be easier. But that's probably a challenge that businesses don't always think about. When you've got your stock collectively together, you can obviously use it as you need to. When you've got your stock separated, you can't necessarily just pull stock from one across to the other. So there is, where you might think you're rectifying one challenge, you might also be creating another. And that's something that we've seen as well. So that's all driven when the companies hold more stock, that takes more cash from the sort of working capital cycle, and therefore that's was driven the kind of requirement back towards ourselves to provide that additional working capital. So yeah, I would say it's definitely a complex situation. It's not necessarily just straightforward, has knock-on implications such as business insurances and all sorts. So I think businesses really need to see if that is worth their while, and take all these things into consideration. If
we were thinking of taking that first step, what would that first step or point of contact be, would you recommend?
Yeah, so I think the first step would be if you were, for instance, already exporting to the EU and you were thinking of setting up a subsidiary overseas. One, you probably need to think about where you're going to locate overseas, and probably engaging some legal advice would be quite key. Probably from someone such as Womble Bond Dickinson that has like an international department, because that's going to give you're going to speak to someone that's going to say, actually, the type of product you're doing, or if you're going to employ people, where would be most conducive for that? So from an operational sense. I think secondly, definitely engaging someone such as Linda, where really you're looking at someone that can give you a more holistic view and has experience within that. And then third is speaking to whoever currently funds you, whether that be a bank or an alternative provider, to see what options they can provide in terms of funding to enable you to do it. Yeah. So I think looking at all three systematically, but I think first and foremost, probably the legal structures would be the best place to start, because you can have all the funding in the world, but if your product just doesn't fit from a legal perspective, or you need extra regulatory things, it's a non-starter.
That's very sound advice. Thank you, Tom. Linda, on the free of charge samples, I know Gwen is still with us, but is that something that you can speak to?
Again, it comes down to special procedures and the values you put on your documents. So, and I've sent out a link or a document here, which is about sent local jobs and the extra rates. I'm sure I did. I sent something through about the customs procedures. So have a look on that. Happy to have a further conversation with people, but that's where it lies, these special questions. So please look at that. Could I make another comment, please, Rob? I just want to add on to Tom's comments. There are, for some industries, you will need to have a presence in Europe, and you can either have a representative over there, and you may need to actually identify who is the registered importer. Now, there's also something coming over the hill about having a presence in Europe for GDPR, so that if you are bringing information back from Europe or sending information to, you may need a body on the ground. And I echo what Tom said about Womble Bond Dickinson, excellent firm. But there's also another service called Trade with Europe that offer facilitation and representation services. I'll put their contact details in the log. Might be worth it, but and there is a problem here about VAT as well, because if we are collecting VAT as part of GDP within Europe, you need to be registered with the fiscal representation in those separate countries. So one registration at the moment for VAT will not wear it. So it is a legal issue. We can help with some of it, but this is a whole big area. But go to the legislation. Is it saying that your type of product, for instance, fertilizer, needs to have an office over there with separate awarding body for the CE mark. It becomes part of this great big huge whirlwind, or not whirlwind, whirlpool of stuff. So good advice from Tom. I was just wanted to add that extra.
Yes, we've spoken a lot about exporting goods, haven't we? What about services? As we get towards the last half an hour or so of this call, you know, I part of a service business. We run training, learning development services, coaching. Before the pandemic, before Brexit, that used to be all done pretty much face to face, and now we're exclusively online and virtual, and operating in. We operated on 6 continents before COVID. Now we're having to deliver our services to inside and outside of Europe. Be interesting to get a view from you, Linda, Charlotte, on the services, exporting services. You mentioned GDPR. I'm slightly, I've scribbled that down. For providing services to our French client, for example. Would we need, and we do have information on what we're delivering. It does pass between us. It would seem like that we need to do something around your last point about GDPR.
Yes, but I think that we're still in this sort of like formative stage. So there was a lot of things going to be changed by the 1st of April and now have been pushed back until the summer. So keep in contact with the Information Commissioner's office for sure, because they will give that guidance, and possibly even Womble Bond Dickinson as well. But that is coming over the hill with regards to the GDPR provisions,
Right.
And having to register elsewhere as well. But to talk about services, I think our biggest challenge, and this is something we've been saying for some time, keep close to your clients in Europe, whether it be services or production, you know, manufactured goods, because relationships will overcome the issues. What we are seeing though is that there are signs of some xenophobia. There is signs within Europe of negativity towards us, and even things that I don't really want to talk about today with the vaccines and everything, that there is a lot of hot air being spouted, and I think it's harder for service industries to get the first steps right now. Now that might change, but I think use your professional bodies to help. Use the chambers to help use the DIT to make those contacts, but build up the relationship, because it's relationships that will overcome any of this negativity that's coming over the water in both directions. So it's not impossible. And we do have a new website, UK, it's by Innovate, UK Edge or something like that. Used to be the old EEN, but check that out. And have a look what opportunities are there.
That'd be great if you could put that on the chat for guests as well as myself. Charlotte, did you want to build on that?
Well, as a service provider ourselves, we're seeing quite a lot of collaboration actually at the moment with our European colleagues, and you know, we do have a French desk and a German desk in particular, and obviously we have links to the US with Womble Bond Dickinson US, and we're seeing quite a lot of trade outside of Europe. So a lot more interaction with the US at the moment. There does seem to be sort of a slight shift, perhaps, and certainly we're working with colleagues over there, and their GDPR is a big issue because the two sets of legislation tend to clash quite considerably, and so we're being asked quite a lot around transferring data into the US, and my colleagues in the data team are quite busy in relation to that in particular. But as I say, we're certainly seeing a lot of collaboration within our own industry across the legal services, just because we need to be far more collaborative now post Brexit.
Yes, okay. Sharon, your nom de guerre, Jake, you had a question on, or a bit of insight from how you approach things with your Ireland example. Would you like to, Sharon, would you like to address the panel?
Yeah, the question I have is around licenses. So we buy something like Microsoft licenses from Ireland, but we would sell them, we can then sell them on to other countries within the EU. Previously, anything like that was under a reverse back directive, and I just wondered whether that was still the same or whether there are new rules around that now.
Okay, is that something that Linda, you can pick up?
I prefer not. So no, I'm not a VAT expert in any way, shape or form. I'm not really competent to answer that, Sharon, and I do apologise.
That's okay.
I know that BDO, Ross, a previous colleague on one of these panels, was had a link, didn't he, on VAT issues?
Indeed, I shall dig that out, Rob, and share that on the chat. Absolutely.
Great, thanks, Sharon. So I'd encourage anyone that has got experience, to share some of their personal experiences of operating in this new world. So please join the conversation, share some of your experiences, because I think it's the people on the ground that add the even more value to these discussions, especially about personal experiences. Perhaps the good, the mad, and the bad might be a nice structure to it. So please feel free to share your experiences with everyone, because I think learning from one another is often more powerful. So please feel free.
Rob, could I say something here, please?
Of course you can, yeah, go.
I would like to say something that's really good. And in that people are talking about international trade and they're sharing experiences through events like this, which would be unheard of a year or so ago, because people weren't interested. We were living under, being part of the EU. There was no recognition of the skills and the support that was necessary, because nobody just was interested. And I'm very, very pleased to note that in the report that I've posted a link to it about local jobs, Global Britain local jobs, is that actually people with skills in international trade can ask for a premium in their salaries. And I think that's been long overdue. So I think out of this, actually, I can see some good things, and about us perhaps re-energizing our heritage, if you like, about being a trading nation. And I'm sort of feeling that we're going in the right direction.
So it's a muscle that perhaps we haven't developed, but we are having to develop it post haste now, aren't we?
Yes, yes.
And it'd be interesting, Ross, to hear, and perhaps if Jane's still with us, about the sort of feedback that you provide upwards to government, and what's that been like, Ross?
Well, absolutely. I mean, the things that the Chamber of Commerce has been, for our sins, I would say, talking with government since 2016, really, regarding the changes that are required, and the business voice has been very much at the centre of everything that they've done. Sometimes you look at that and you can hardly believe it, really, but it's been a continuous dialogue since 2016 on exactly what the businesses need in terms of the changes. Now, fundamentally, what the government made the decision, not early on, but did make the decision, of course, of leaving the single market and the customs union was always going to have a major impact on the way that the operating matters, the operating procedures. And I suppose businesses thought that with a free trade agreement, an awful lot would be eased, maybe far more than perhaps has been realised. Understandably, businesses would think that and wait to see that free trade agreement coming through, and then adjust accordingly. So we have constantly kept the government up to date and informed as to what those business needs were. Through British Chambers of Commerce, we had a checklist, a health checklist with businesses, and as each and every one of those questions got answered, then we ticked those off. But even at the end of December, there were still quite a few where we needed some clarification. in the last couple of months, there's no doubt that we've been learning through action. We haven't been able to find the absolute solutions to things other than through businesses experiencing them, and then we have been the voice back up to business and saying there have been obstacles at ports, there have been obstacles in transitioning across different borders, there have been obstacles in understanding that actually transitioning across the whole of Europe, you're entering in and out of several countries with different procedures. There's been a wide range of issues, and Linda and her team and others have been at the forefront of helping us to provide one-to-one advice to businesses. And that one-to-one advice is still there. And the important thing is that when we get an understanding from the businesses, we then continue to feed that back up to government. And when you see, I suppose, the kind of decisions that are being made by Lord David Frost, and also decisions being made by Michael Gove, some of that is directly as a result of the information that we're getting from businesses and directly influencing and affecting the changes that we're seeing. So they know the issues that you're experiencing. We just need to be able to get them from you so we can share them up through to government very, very effectively, I think. And so the only shout out I would say is get in touch with the Chamber of Commerce, because we can provide through Linda and her team and others one-to-one advice. I'm going to be putting on in the next half an hour or so, putting on the information regarding some of the forthcoming webinars and events that we've got. But that one-to-one advice will allow you to be able to see the specific issues that you're experiencing. That shares them with us, which allows us to inform government, but importantly, allows Linda and her team to be able to give you the kind of structured advice and information you need. So it's still there, but it's ongoing. I think that's the simple message.
Thank you, Ross. And there are other forums, aren't there, for our guests to take part in, where experiences of this can be shared and solutions found, isn't there?
Absolutely. We've got just looking at that, we've got a UK export finance webinar coming up on the 25th of March between 10 and 11 o'clock, which I think will be very useful to you all. We also have, I'm just going to get hold of it, we have an event all around people, and I'm going to put that into the chat. So I know that there are many questions regarding how do I employ people in Europe? What if I'm employing people from Europe, particularly if those have come into the country since the 1st of January? All of those issues get addressed on our EU transition people piece, and I'll put that in as well. But also there's a few on markets. We've got one on Spain, on Belgium, on Germany. So, you know, some of those big markets where there are big opportunities, things have changed, but those markets are massive opportunities for us. And in thinking about global Britain, we can sometimes think beyond Europe. Europe is still going to be and must be one of our major markets, but there are technical changes in order to reach them. So having those insights is very important. So I'll put all of those in the chat, and please just click onto them and book them.
Jane, would you like to say something?
Just really to endorse what Ross has just said about the actions being taken around the information that we're getting from businesses requesting support and sharing their challenges. We're also reporting that directly up to government, and as Ross has said, the most practical way for us to respond to that is by providing support, as the Chamber are doing, which is really very practical support. And you'll have seen from this event today, it's the kind of detail that businesses need now, and that's what we're hearing from the business community. We don't want, these sort of wide-ranging, broad, vague comments around how Brexit is going to affect businesses. We want detail, we want bespoke, tailored, one-to-one support now. And that's what the Chamber are obviously providing access to through experts like Linda, and we're able to connect businesses to one-to-one support, of the same sort of nature as well, which I just think is really important for businesses at the moment. I've put a few links in the chat there, but yeah, absolutely endorse what the Chamber are doing, and the access to expertise like Linda's for businesses, I think, is just the kind of practical, detailed support that people need.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Jane. Rob Ladd, the floor is yours, sir. Do you have a question? Please, if you feel comfortable, you can address the panel if you're with us, Rob.
Hi. No, I was just going to say that we import and export with the EU, and following on from comments that you made earlier, that it's the customs agents, I think, that are overloaded due to the agreement that was struck at the last hour, at the end of last year, and dealing with the huge volumes of paperwork. But we find a lot of our imports come in much smoother than our exports going into the EU. We have a lot of exports held up in Germany and in France because of all the exports we make into them. They have to do the full declarations going in there, whereas the ones coming into the UK, a lot of goods are coming in under the simplified declaration. So that's keeping the flow of goods moving. And it was good to see the other day the government extended to the end of the year now, haven't they? The simplified declarations, which so otherwise I could see this cliff edge coming at the end of June, where suddenly everybody has to do full declarations, and we're going to see a lot of hold up. So, yeah.
Well, Rob, you share a little bit more of that experience, without giving anything away in terms of, specifics, but what advice would you give to others that perhaps aren't as far down the track as you are with this?
I think the key thing is going back to the basics, is Incoterms, getting them right at the start. Try to get as many of our suppliers within the EU to deliver to us on DDP terms, which takes a lot of liability away from us, a lot of hassle away from us. But very few of them want to do that, understandably, because all the onus is on them. But I think try to start there. Try to get DDP if you can when you import. If not, then some other terms, and then you have to get a customs agent over here. Get a good customs agent in place. We've got freight forwarders that import some goods for us, as well as some of our suppliers delivering. They do some customs declarations for us when they import. But we also use the Chamber of Commerce as well, Chamber Customs, which we found very, very good. Anybody else listening to this, I can recommend the Chamber of Commerce, the Chamber Customs Department. It's very, very good, very helpful, very swift. So yeah, we had agreements in place with our freight forwarders, the direct representation for them to do all the import clearances into the UK. So we have 2 freight forwarders we use, plus we have Chamber Customs as well. So we've got our bases covered there, as well as our suppliers that do DDP. But on the export side, then we try where we can just to sell on DAP terms. So we're in control of all the freight, but we're not liable for the VAT and everything at the other end. We just have to do the export clearance. Once again, we use the 2 freight forwarders we use for import. They do the export clearance. But once it gets to the other side of the channel, then it's down to the customer and their customs agents to take it from there. Yeah, it is very complex. We try to make it as simple as possible, but it's not straightforward. It's not straightforward. Yeah, and then I was speaking to the Chamber of Commerce before. They said FCA terms are quite good. So it takes a lot of liability away from you, and a customer arranges collection, but you still have to arrange the export clearance. And then you need proof of export for HMRC. Otherwise, if they come to an inquiry later down the line and say, okay, we need proof that it arrived within the EU. Yeah, you've got to have that. So yeah, it is very complex. It's not straightforward to anybody, I think.
Yes.
But yeah, we're attending events like this, and we've been going to events since sort of the back end of last year, using the Chamber of Commerce and other people, and trying to get as much information as we get. We find each event like this, you might pick up 1 or 2 snippets of information, maybe a few more, but just 1 or 2 could be so valuable. And then yeah, it's like a big jigsaw puzzle, I find, putting it all together.
And as an organisation, you lead your organisation, Rob. From a sort of behavioural, attitudinal perspective, has there been Linda hinted on this earlier about this sort of shift to exercise this new muscle? It's not going to change anytime soon. In fact, we need to get very comfortable with the new situation. How's that played out in your business?
Yes. No, I mean, as I said, it's made things a lot more complex, but we still try to keep the basics and deliver a good service to our customers. And that's key, really, but it has made things a lot more complex. But we're still importing, we're still exporting, and we just hope that things will get easier in time for everybody, for our customers, our suppliers, us, and I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will.
Thank you,
just
Rob.
the additional paperwork we will have to get used to now. That's all.
Yeah. And that link to the Chambers reference, it'd be great if you could put that in the chat, or Ross.
Yeah, Chamber Customs, very, very, very good. I recommend them. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Rob. And anyone else that'd like to share their experiences with us, then please feel free just to open up the mic, and the floor is yours.
Rob, while people are waiting, may I make a comment about what Rob has said? And thank you for sharing that with us, Rob. I think that if anybody asks me ever what is the most important thing to learn first about exporting, it's always about Incoterms. Incoterms are a great invention. They're not legal per se, but it gives an indication of who bears the risk, the cost and the obligations of each party to an international contract of sale. And they help in so many different ways, about defining what the seller pays for, what the buyer pays for. And they're a marvellous invention. If they're not invented, they needed to be invented, if you see what I mean. So I think learning about them, because that allows you to cost your goods appropriately, so that if you are selling it Ex Works, which is somebody comes and collects it to you, it might cost 10, but if you're delivering it to your buyer, who happens to be in Antwerp, for instance, that would then have the 10 plus the costs of getting it there. So it allows you to forecast how much you can charge, and not get caught out by those extra charges that may occur as a result of getting your goods to market. So Incoterms are fundamental to exporting. There's a load of other things which Rob has mentioned, but Incoterms, and I know that the Chamber are doing things, have done things on Incoterms. Very happy to talk to any of them. Perhaps we could talk about them at some of the free clinics or whatever, but good on you, Rob, for recognising the differences between the different ones.
Thank you, Linda. Let's
yes, sorry, just to add to that as well, if you're looking at any kind of trade finance or supply chain finance facilities where someone buys in those goods on your behalf, which is one of the services we offer, like Linda said, actually understanding ownership of those goods is absolutely key, because in effect someone else is going to buy those goods for you, and when duties need to be paid, and some funders are willing to pay those duties as well as part of the funding, some are not. So actually having a really good, clear understanding of that, and in terms of what insurances you've got in place, it's not uncommon that we've come across businesses where they believe the goods are insured by the person that sent them to them, and they're not, because they didn't understand Incoterms correctly. So I definitely think, going back to our kind of original discussion, Incoterms are absolutely imperative. So I think that's a really good point from Linda, and obviously it just has a wider implication than what you might even just think initially.
Okay, thank you, Tom. And Linda, you put a link to some of those in the chat. So let's, as we go into the last 15 minutes or so of the session, a question to our panelists. What assumptions are you making over the next 2 to 3 months? Assumptions that you know to be true, that that will inform some of your actions over the next 2 to 3 months. From your perspective, what assumptions are you making about the current environment and how it might change?
Okay, I'm ready, Rob, with that. Today, there's been an announcement that the £20 million extra funding for training and support for exporters has been released. That's great news for UK PLC. And I would urge anybody who wants that extra bespoke or training through the chamber to sort of like really be aware of that. I see more confusion for the next 3, 4, 5 months. I think it will get better as we cut our teeth on our processes, as Rob referred to. It's about that learning thing. So I think the noise will continue, and towards the end of the year there may well be a plateauing where we know what we need to learn, and that will be an onward process of things. I think what's interesting is how many free trade agreements that we are opening, and with different markets across the world. We still have the context of global trade wars, and it feels like very much like we're in a trade war. So I would say to companies, look out for global context, because that will affect where you choose to go or not, which is most important. And the last thing that I would say that I see coming up is a change with the World Trade Organization, with the new lady, whose name I can say if I can see it written in front of me, but it's quite difficult. A fabulous, fabulous woman who used to work for the World Bank. She's got loads and loads of background and experience. So I think, you know, that's what I see coming up. So more noise, it will lessen. World Trade Organization are going to start making their own set of noise. And I'm quite positive for this country. I think we're in a bad place right now, but I think with organisations like the Chambers, who are so vital to how we approach the next year, 2 years and ongoing, I'm delighted that there's been such interest today, and that our relationships are really strong, because we all want to go in the same direction, which is up.
Great, thank you, Linda. And Tom, let's turn to you. What assumptions are you making?
So as a business, assumptions we're making one assumption that we feel that more businesses that export will likely set up some kind of subsidiary overseas, whether that be in turn a physical presence or indeed just a more international group structure. And from that, we don't believe that'll be just driven by the EU either. We see a lot more businesses now looking at setting up within the USA as well, which might just be ourselves. But I think, going back to the earlier point that Linda raised, I think international trade is much higher up the agenda. And I think as people gain confidence that they might need to set up a overseas subsidiary, say in Ireland, to trade with the rest of the EU, then why not just include the USA while they're at it, and actually look at exporting further afield. We also see that the kind of CBILS program that's moving now kind of evolved very slightly to the business recovery scheme. These schemes will probably start to wind down. So we see kind of more of a resumption back to normal lending. We actually see there being quite a lot of opportunity, because at the moment there does seem a lot of businesses that are looking at doing a lot of trade, especially driven mainly by kind of large infrastructure projects and things from central government. So we do see a lot of demand kind of ready to come down the pipeline. So we actually see working capital becoming higher up the agenda, and as a secured lender, well placed to do that. So that would be the kind of 3 assumptions from our side that are on the agenda at the moment.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Tom. Charlotte, same question to you.
I think I see there are challenges ahead. Obviously, we're finding our way, all of us, and laws and the like will change, and the rules will change, and we need to roll with that as much as we can. You know, we're watching this space from an employment perspective. Clearly, the tribunals at the moment are still following EU law made by the European Court of Justice, and we've seen that over the last couple of weeks, which actually is quite reassuring, because we kind of know where we're at with that. But I really think there's an opportunity for British entrepreneurial spirit. I think we're renowned as a nation for our entrepreneurial spirit and our creativity. And I think there's a real opportunity. I'm seeing lots of opportunities and excitement actually about the challenges are giving rise to. So there will be changes in the structures of business, so redundancy, restructuring, but that's not always a bad thing. Sometimes some amazing things can grow from that. And I think we need to concentrate as much as we can on the positives that can come from this change, because it does always give us an amazing opportunity.
Great, thank you, Charlotte. Thank you, Linda and Tom. Well, I'm going to turn to Ross shortly just to get his view and to close the session. I think that there's lots of opportunities, links for extra information, but also working with real people in peer-to-peer networks, which I know the Solent LEP been doing a huge amount of work on, and something that we're involved with the Hampshire Chamber. I can't recommend them strongly enough to share experiences and learn from one another in our journeys to this new way of operating. So strongly recommend that you have a look at that as an option. Ross, so over to you to provide some closing remarks.
Thanks very much, Rob. Firstly, thank you, everybody. Thank you for the expert panel, very expert panel today in terms of the detail and the knowledge that we've been sharing, but also to you all in terms of your questions, in terms of your contributions in your business experiences. It is only through this sort of sharing that we really start to understand the questions we need to be asking ourselves as businesses, and then go and find the advice and the support. Now, you see, I've been pretty busy providing you with an awful lot of links on the chat. Please do click on those. There's some very interesting opportunities with regard to webinars, advice around VAT. We've got things coming from Linda and from others around Incoterms and everything else. This whole thread that we've got on the chat there is really helpful, and we'll make sure that we capture that and we share that with you, because obviously that's a one-stop source of information for all the solutions you have. Now, this program is ongoing. We've got events coming up on particular markets. We've got events coming up around export finance and on people. So please do participate, book yourself onto it. And as I think has already been said, you may glean only one or two pieces of information at some of these events, but it could be the real game changer when it comes to a solution to the business problem that you're addressing, and also one to find new opportunities out there. But all of this, I think, comes together. We've got a government, because of Brexit and because of COVID-19, that is going to get right behind business and is going to support business because they have to. And we're going to continue to voice that need to government, because, you know, the transition, the pivots that we're all going to have to make as businesses over the coming years is either going to make a massive global success of Britain, or it's going to just continue with more and more challenges. And obviously this government, I think all governments will want to make absolutely sure that we see this as an opportunity. So get in touch with the Chamber, because we have one-to-one advice, we have events and activities, but we've also got, as has been very kindly promoted, our whole customs clearance program and our customs documentation services. We are able to provide those sources, and if we don't know it, we know a person who does. So we'll put you in touch with the right people. There are training grants out there, so you know, things that you need to do. You know, government is supporting training around customs and supporting your needs in that area. We've also got training programs which are not so expensive, but actually can make sure that you have your people trained up into this new environment. With Linda and her team and others, we've got one-to-one advice for you. But linked to that, we've also got, as Rob has mentioned, peer networks program, so you can get involved in sharing with fellow businesses around the peer-to-peer programs. We know that they're going to be coming. We've already run a couple of these, but we know they're going to be there for the longer term. So for the future, you can express your interest in getting involved in our peer network program and share and work with other businesses to help find solutions to your needs. But just as importantly is, let's look at the next generation of people coming through. The Kickstart program, I think, is vital to the UK. We've got a whole generation of young people who've had major problems coming through their examination periods in the past, year or so, and that's going to be ongoing this summer. So let's get support to those that find themselves without a job. Kickstart is a brilliant way of inducting them into careers that will really make a difference, will be a major change for them, and probably give them the opportunity to work in SMEs that maybe they hadn't thought of if you'd asked them 18 months ago. So think originally about how you can provide Kickstart opportunities for people, fully funded by government. Get in touch with the Chamber again, because we could act as the gateway for that, an intermediary for it, help you to shape your offer and shape your job description and basically get that started. So I do think that it's a very positive time, as Linda said, you know, that we are now going into a whole new era of entrepreneurialism because we have to. And so therefore, the Chamber is there to support you. The colleagues on the call are here to support you. And importantly, Chamber of Solutions is here to support you. It's about the big share. It's about making sure that you are sharing your experiences, sharing your knowledge, and we'll provide the platforms to ensure that that happens. It's been a wonderful event, and please get involved in the events coming forward and get in touch with me if you have any queries, any questions, or any ideas about how we can shape our support to you more effectively. Please do get in touch. It's been a great event. Finally, and as always, I want to thank Rob and the Mission Performance team, Bob in particular, in all the work that he's done in supporting Chamber of Solutions. Without them, this show would not be nearly as interesting and nearly as effective. So thank you, Rob, and back to you.
Thank you, Ross. Before we say goodbye, if you go to your chat, bottom of your chat, you'll see 3 dots. If you don't know it already, you can right-click it and save the entire chat and take it away with you, just in case you didn't know that. So thank you very much for all being here. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, Bob. The very best of luck to you. And we hope to see you all again very soon on our next Chamber of Solutions in a couple of weeks' time.